It's 2012 and you are finally playing the last installment of the best space opera trilogy to have ever existed. Mass Effect 3 is out, just 2 years after Mass Effect 2, and all the choices you've made, all the saves you've loaded and reloaded to make sure you have made the best possible choices that will lead to the best possible outcome will culminate into this monumental conclusion of this incredible space epic. Only for said choices to account for literally nothing in the end, and for the game to practically tell you to pick a color and force you to play the multiplayer version of the game if you wanted to unlock the more hopeful ending.
What the fuck is this?
So in this video, we're going to go over the Mass Effect 3 ending controversy and why it happened, why the endings made no sense, and what this entire situation meant for Bioware, as in my opinion, this was the exact moment Bioware started declining as a studio and slowly but surely started heading full speed ahead towards the disgraced position it has found itself in today. Before we begin,
you know what? I'm about to say it.
I'm still salty about the endings, because I was one of those players who played Mass Effect 2 and 3 when they first came out, and it should be brought to everyone's attention that back when Mass Effect 3 released, there wasn't even a third choice. There was only blue and red, Paragon and Renegade, good and bad. Those were the only two endings. Both choices were fundamentally lore-defiant and illogical, so there was an understandable uproar from the fans. And the reasons for said uproar were many, trust me. Reason number one was the fact that all of our choices amounted to essentially nothing in the end. The second reason was that a story-driven single-player RPG required you to play its online version to unlock one of the single-player endings, because yes, the more hopeful version could only be unlocked by playing Mass Effect 3 Online to acquire more war assets. And the last reason, and the most important one, is that all fans were livid that Bioware had rushed a game that they really shouldn't have rushed, and then they turned around and blamed everything on EA, and ultimately they destroyed a game beloved by many. In other words, it was a day ending in Y for Bioware. They later released a DLC that attempted to explain everything in a much more concise and better way that only ended up reinforcing everyone's original feelings about the ending. The ending was simply lore-defiant and illogical. Fans came up with better explanations as to why the ending was the way it was than the entire studio and their creative liberties ever did. But here's why none of the endings made sense, and most importantly, why this was the beginning of the end for the Bioware we had known and loved until that specific point in time. Throughout the Mass Effect trilogy, we are running around trying to convince all the other space races that the Reapers are coming to unalive any and all life in the Milky Way galaxy. The Reapers are revealed to basically be just the tools of an AI created by a spacefaring race, the Leviathan. A race that used to conquer worlds, subjugate other races, and make them pay tribute to them. However, after expanding their reach far and wide, they started realizing that all species made the same mistake. So the Leviathan wanted to find a solution to this one constant. That constant being that every time that organics created synthetics, aka AI, then those synthetics were always destined to surpass their creators and rebel against as well as seek to destroy them. And then war would eventually break out between the two species. So what solution did this powerful race come up with? In their egocentric hubris, they thought that they could not fall for the same mistake as those lesser space races, right? So they chose to create their own powerful AI, the Catalyst, to oversee the relationship between organics and synthetics across the Milky Way and try to act as a bridge between the two. Unsurprisingly, however, the Catalyst betrays its creators and starts collecting organic information from organic life throughout the cosmos behind its creator's back. and after failing to establish peace between the two, it thinks that the only solution to this constant conflict between organics and synthetics is to reap or harvest all species at their peak and turn them into a reaper, an organic synthetic being made from each race's DNA. That way, that organic life's DNA, memories, cultures, and so on are all preserved for eons to come. And so, the catalyst attacked its own creators, drove them almost to extinction, and created the first Reaper in the image of their creators, Harbinger. It then created the Citadel and mass relays so that species can evolve even faster and base all of their technology on the Reapers. Then they wait 50,000 years in the dark reaches of space for the species of its cycle to develop enough to create their own powerful synthetics and then come in, harvesting all of them and turning each race into a different Reaper. They also use things like capturing and genetically repurposing species for their own needs, like they did with the Protheans, for example, so that they can aid them in their efforts to attack, harvest, and make Reapers out of all the races. Not everything is lost, however, as there is a weapon that could put an end to all these cycles of constant conflict, war, and violence: the Crucible. We don't know much about it other than, in combination with the Citadel, it is capable of releasing incredible amounts of energy throughout the universe. Who came up with it? How does it work? The catalyst tells you that you wouldn't know who created it anyway, and there isn't time to explain, aka it just works, don't worry about it. So basically, Bioware's explanation about what this weapon is, who created it, etc. was essentially, it's just my Deus Ex Machina. Don't question me about it, it just works. At this point, you might be thinking, wait, so the catalyst solution to chaos is basically more chaos and the annihilation of entire species every 50,000 years. Unfortunately, that's basically it, yes.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
And when you ask the catalyst about this nonsensical logic, it replies with something akin to, well, I'm not at war with you, I just want to harvest and reap you in peace, you're the ones that are resisting your demise.
Congratulations, you are being rescued. Please do not resist.
Also, Shepard brings up the other nonsensical part of the catalyst logic, which is the fact that by harvesting each species and turning them into a Reaper, they are not exactly preserving said species because the race doesn't get to keep its form. To which the catalyst gives you one more nonsensical explanation that basically boils down to synthetics are always destined to kill organics, and thus you can't keep your own forms because you will die. But instead, I have created synthetic organic hybrids to kill and harvest both synthetics and organics so that once again you won't get to keep your forms and also die anyway. So to me at least, the catalyst plan sounds like Gru's plan in that the more it tried to explain the plan, the less sense it made. And that would have been okay if the game hadn't tried to sell us the catalyst as this all-powerful and all-knowing AI that has observed species of all kinds for millennia and thus has a much deeper and better understanding of the situation than what we primitive races do. So this really made no sense to me, and the supposed logic behind this entire plan is just not logical at all. One of the many Reaper weapons that the Reapers utilize is indoctrination, which is basically mental manipulation. And here's how that works. Once an organic being is close to a Reaper, the Reaper can then slowly but surely start compelling this being to do its bidding. All the while, the individual's mind is slowly eroded until they have become a shell of themselves and are incapable of independent thought. And thus they become the Reaper's slave. A prime example of just that would be Sarah in Mass Effect 1. Indoctrination also ensures that no organic can ever control the Reapers, as any effort to do so would lead to the person getting indoctrinated instead. Which brings me to why the blue ending, a color by the way that the game had conditioned us into associating with the good choices in the game, and the consequences of said ending make absolutely zero sense, as Shepard becomes this space Jesus character that dies in order to save the entire galaxy by becoming a Reaper and controlling the rest of them. And here is where their lore breaks, because how? What about indoctrination? I thought the game makes it abundantly clear that the Reapers cannot be controlled. You'd only end up thinking you're controlling them, but in reality, you'd only be a servant of theirs, unwittingly doing their bidding. Also, the elusive man was right all along, but he tried to control them and failed. The excuse we're given about why the elusive man couldn't control the Reapers but Shepard can is because the elusive man was indoctrinated, whereas Shepard isn't. Which once again makes Shepard into this space Jesus character, because how did Shepard not get indoctrinated throughout his constant interactions with the Reapers throughout the 3 games? Bioware's answer to this question is basically why? Because. Don't worry about it and don't ask questions, just pick a color.
Why?
Our next ending, is the red ending, aka the destroy ending, and in my opinion, the only somewhat logical one. As the name suggests, this choice leads to the destruction of the Reapers, our ultimate goal finally fulfilled. We set out to destroy the Reapers, and that's what we'll do. But no. That would make way too much sense for Bioware, so they hit us with, well, if you choose to destroy the Reapers, you will also destroy any and all synthetic life in the universe. How does that even work? And I know some will say, well, the Reapers left the Citadel there and the mass relays to ensure all technology will be based on theirs, so it stands to reason that by destroying their technology, we will also destroy all similar technology in the galaxy as well. Okay, then why does controlling the Reapers doesn't equate to controlling all synthetics, but destroying them does equate to destroying all synthetics? It just doesn't make any sense. Another problem here is that the catalyst also says, oh, also if you choose to destroy them, this will happen again because your children will make synthetics again and the 2 species will always end up fighting each other. There's absolutely no hope for peace.
Why isn't it possible? It's just not. Why not, you stupid bastard?
So what was the point of Rannoch? Why show us peace between organics and synthetics is in fact possible, only to completely ignore that it even happened later on? I mean, the catalyst doesn't even say something like, I know peace was managed to be brokered between the Geth and the Quarians, but that was just an exception to the rule, but exceptions only prove the rule, or something like that at least. Bioware's answer to all these questions? You guessed it, it was, because don't ask questions, don't worry about it, just pick a color. The catalyst also tells us that the damage caused can be restored. So I always choose this ending because we can just restore the synthetics we want afterwards, so who cares? They'll just be out of order for a while. It's like your phone shutting down while you're out or something, and it stays like that until you go home and charge it. It didn't break, it still works technically, you'll just get it to work at a later time. So once again, this really didn't make much sense either. Many desperate fans, myself included, have come up with a theory that the catalyst is just scared and doesn't want to get destroyed and is thus just lying to us in order to save itself. But I feel like we're giving way too much credit to both the poorly written Star Child and its creator. And I'm not talking about the Leviathan here, I'm of course talking about Bioware. Before the Leviathan DLC, only these 2 choices were available, red and blue, destroy or control.
What? What?
But after the fan uproar, Bioware patched the game to let you access the more hopeful ending without the game requiring you to play in the online version. They also added another ending and also released this DLC in an effort to explain the supposed logic behind all these inconsistencies. So this ending was essentially added in an effort to appease the outraged fans, but of course it failed to do so as this was equally nonsensical. The green ending is essentially synthesis, uniting both organics and synthetics by merging the two beings into one. So essentially Shepard decides to make the extremely immoral decision of making everyone into an organic-synthetic hybrid without their consent, aka what the Reapers are currently doing anyway, only this time he will be allowing them to stay in one body without becoming Reapers. Also, if an organic merges with a synthetic, whose consciousness is retained? Do they both inhabit and thus are both trapped into that one same body they share? Or do the two merge to become one new being? If so, what happens to the two individuals that existed before the merge? Do they just get sacrificed to make one new individual? How is this not equally, if not more, unethical than what the Catalyst is currently doing with the Reapers? Also, the Catalyst says that this is the last evolutionary step of all life, and that it tried to find a similar solution in the past, but it always failed because organics were not ready, and synthesis is not something that can be forced upon someone. But it is somehow okay for Shepard to force all organics to do merge with synthetics now? How? And why? Bioware's answer to these questions was once again, because don't worry about it and don't ask questions, just pick a color already.
Really?
Going back and looking at this entire situation now, it gives me a sense of foreboding, I would say, because this was just foreshadowing for what was to come. This was the first crack in a series of cracks that just shattered Bioware and what it was and once stood for altogether. The complete lack of explanation for any of the endings was truly the first.
Don't ask questions, just consume product and then get excited for next product.
There was even a point when Bioware was genuinely baffled for some reason, and also kind of mad, at least that's how it all came across, that we were asking these questions and expressing our disappointment with those endings and lack of explanations. They even said that changing the ending after the game was out would threaten their quote-unquote artistic integrity, which, okay, I guess fair enough, it was their vision and their game after all, but no one was saying make the ending what we want or else. What we were saying was, I don't like the ending, but at least help me understand and also make it so it makes more sense and doesn't completely break the lore of all three games. Not to mention, what artistic integrity exactly? Because according to Bioware, they had a great plan, but EA rushed them and they had to cut corners, and that is why the ending was so bad. So it sounds to me like artistic integrity was already out of the window. So why not give the fans what they wanted? I'm honestly kind of tired of Bioware not listening to their fans and then going ahead with what their fans specifically told them they do not like or want in the game, integrating it into the game nonetheless, and then when the game comes out and disappoints their fans and or flops, Bioware just pulls a Pikachu surprised face and goes, "It wasn't me, EA made me do it." Honestly, knowing how greedy EA is, they would have probably jumped at the opportunity to make a proper ending DLC and watch it sell like hotcakes. Bioware just really needs a reality check and an extensive lesson in accountability at this point, as they have been making the same exact mistake with every game they have released ever since Mass Effect 3 came to an end.
Oh, Carlos declined.
Embarrassing!
Carlos declined.
And don't get me wrong, EA is an awful company and they're known to rush studios to make a profit in a much faster rate. But what about Dragon Age: The Veilguard? They had 10 years, an entire decade, to work on that game, and they still came up with excuses like, it's EA's fault this flopped, it's not because we retconned the entire lore, it's not because we disregarded literally all your previous choices and how said choices have shaped the world of Thedas, it's not because we gave you 3 basic choices to make you feel like this is somehow related to the world you knew and loved, it's not because we treated this game like our own personal fanfiction and inserted our very modern and exact ideologies and identities into a medieval fantasy world in an effort to preach and push our agendas. No, that wasn't it. It was EA's fault all along for making us always change and scrap the game because they wanted an online game instead of a story-driven RPG. Which again, I get it that those things were true and that money-hungry EA almost definitely wanted an online game they could monetize for months or maybe even years to come. But they eventually relented and gave you the opportunity to prove them wrong, to show them that single-player, story-driven RPGs can in fact be successful, and then you go ahead and ignore your fans and what they want, and instead specifically hire people that will not only affirm what you believe, but also encourage you to add even more of what you wanted to add into the game anyway, while the majority of fans is once again, by and large, ignored. Of course EA made it difficult for them, I'm not saying they didn't, it's EA after all, but they eventually caved and gave you the opportunity to prove them wrong. And not only did you fumble the ball, but you face planted right afterwards as well, as Dragon Age will probably be shelved for years to come. And frankly, maybe it won't even get touched ever again, because honestly, after the hot garbage that was the Veilguard, nobody will want to touch that game, even with a 10-foot pole. And now they got their hands on Mass Effect, which again scares me so much, and honestly, it is a whole other can of worms which we will get into in another video, as I think that I've ranted for way too long already. But this was the exact moment Bioware changed. Many people left as a result, and the husk that remains of it is struggling because of their senseless decisions. They know exactly what fans want, they know what worked, but the people that knew those things wisely chose to leave and start their own studios or work on other projects, or they were fired. And the new activists that came in and took over at Bioware have completely decimated one of Bioware's IPs already, and the few hopeful Bioware fans that still remain are holding their breaths, hoping they won't see another childhood-defining IP get the Veilguard treatment. But I don't for a second buy this whole "it's always someone else's fault other than my own" shtick Bioware has got going on for itself. It's super childish, petty, and quite frankly quite condescending, as I feel like they think we're stupid or something and that we will get gaslighted by them and their excuses of, it's not my fault Mass Effect 3 ending is like that, it's EA's fault. It's not my fault Anthem flopped, it's EA's fault. It's not my fault Andromeda flopped, it's EA's fault. It's not my fault the Veilguard flopped, it's EA's fault. It's never their fault, or the fact that they don't listen to what their fans want, and the fact that they have completely gutted the studio and everyone that created those IPs has left, and the people that they are hiring right now are just activists that are there to push a message and not there to create a next installment in this amazing universe of both the Dragon Age universe and the Mass Effect universe.
Do what you must.
So be it.
It was a misinput, calm down! You calm the fuck down! There was a misinput!
Oh my fucking god.